What is your name? Where do you live?
My name is Dina Betty. I live in Martinez, California.
Where were you at the morning of September 11th, 2001?
I was in my kitchen the morning of September 11th, 2001.
How old were you?
I was 30.
What was your initial reaction?
I was in shock. I couldn't believe that this was actually happening in my lifetime. I knew of other things, terrible things in history that had happened, but I wasn't born. And it's a completely different feeling when you experience it in your own lifetime.
Did you know anyone who worked or visited there?
I didn't know anybody who worked there, but my sister had plans to go to New York on vacation. Just so happens it was 2 weeks after September 11th happened, and she didn't know if she should go. And she ended up going and saw the devastation, and she came back home and just shared how horrible it really, really was.
How did you hear about the attacks? What did you do when you heard?
No problem, D.
Well, like I said, it was it was in the morning, and my husband called me and he told me to turn on the TV, and told me what had happened, and I turned on the TV, and so all the information came to me as I stared at the TV, and the news was reporting their play-by-plays, and at that point, they weren't sure if there was more planes in the sky that were going to do the exact same thing or try to do the exact same thing that happened to the trade centers. And at that point, that flight that crashed was Flight 93 that had crashed, hadn't crashed yet. So anyway, we watched that all play out just on TV.
Did you notice any differences in the way strangers treated one another after this tragedy?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I didn't notice it. It didn't affect me personally, but there were stories of like paranoia with people who are Muslims, and people of that race, and people who were from, that were Persian. Definitely, there was that sense of paranoia, and then there was that overall sadness in the world that a person could do this to humanity. So there was definitely changes in just feeling like all was good, all wasn't good anymore.
Did this tragedy change you in any way?
The biggest thing it did for me, and one of the things that I've continued to try to be as a person, is to really try to understand other people, and see where they're coming from. I think that there's so much righteousness in people's opinions that I really try to learn and really try to understand where people are coming from, because oftentimes when people feel understood, it dissipates their anger and frustration, and how they see the world. So it's changed me in a way that I can honestly say for the better. It's changed me, and I know that sounds kind of strange, but I've tried to make something good out of something horrible.
That's good. How do you feel about the world has changed as a result of September 11th?
Gosh, the world has changed so much. I mean, you compare it to when I grew up, and we would be out on our bicycles and out in the street and walking around with our friends, I mean, at young ages, and it was all good and safe. And I just see that there's some mass paranoia now. Everybody's scared that something's going to happen, and there's a lot more fear. And then the other thing is, we have heightened security. We have things that have fundamentally changed, like the way when we go through security at an airport, for example. When we go to watch sports at a professional sporting events with our families, things have changed there. So, heightened security, and just that overall fear is heightened.
Do you think there is anything we could do to prevent this from happening or happening again?
That's a really good question. I don't know if I know the answer to it, but I would say one of the components to answering that question would be the only way that I could see a yes to that is, again, seeking to understand people. And then once you understand that, you can come back and perhaps give them other perspective that, we can all get along and value each other's differences, and cohabitate, and we don't all have to think the same. And that's a really hard thing to do. I don't know if it's possible.
Why do you think it is important to learn about September 11th?
Well, you know what? I personally think history is so important, not just September 11th, but all of the things. I share with my kids that one of the main reasons we learn history is so we don't repeat it. And so we learn from it and we get better from it, and we don't just turn a blind eye and move on with our own, small version of our world that surrounds us. But that we really learn that things like this are possible, and we make a difference in the world. We make a difference. And so the only way to recognize that is to realize that, we have a history of the way human beings act, and we have a way to change it.
All right. Well, that's all the questions I have, so thank you.
You're welcome.